Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dušan Valeček, and I represent the ALLATRA International Public Movement. Our organization deals with research of issues related to climate change, ecology, and the protection of human rights. However, in the course of this work, we ourselves have faced severe violations of fundamental rights: freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, and freedom of religion. In the Russian Federation, former volunteers of our organization are being subjected to persecution, humiliation, torture, and imprisonment. Who is behind the persecution of religious minorities and human rights defenders, behind the incitement of hatred that leads to violence and genocide? Behind it is a transnational anti-cult network operating under the guise of fighting so-called dangerous cults and sects. This rhetoric is a cover for serious crimes. These practices violate Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which guarantees everyone the freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Around the world, anti-cult groups have been implicated in sexual abuse, including pedophilia and child trafficking, as well as the exploitation of vulnerable people in forced rehabilitation camps. But that is only part of the problem. This network is actively infiltrating government and legal systems, bribing politicians, influencing prosecutors, producing fake expert reports, and undermining democratic institutions. At the IRF Builders Forum in Washington this May, it was noted that transnational anti-cult networks coordinated from Moscow pose a threat to democracy. Within the OSCE, concerns have repeatedly been raised about the activities of the Russian RACIRS, which is linked to the FSB and its European network, FECRIS. What began as the discrediting of minorities has now grown into the suppression of freedom and the rise of totalitarian tendencies. If we don't recognize this threat and make a legal assessment of the anti-cult network's activities a priority, there may soon be nothing left of democracy in Europe. As long as this network operates with impunity, genuine freedom will remain out of reach. The activities of this network must be stopped, including at the legislative level.
Now I have the ALLATRA International Public Movement.
Thank you very much. My name is Veronika Leštáchová. I'm ambassador of ALLATRA International Public Movement. Within the framework of democratic values and human rights, I wish to draw attention to a concerning phenomenon, the Anticult movement. While this network often claimed to protect society from so-called dangerous sects or destructive cults, in reality their activities frequently result in stigmatization, dehumanization, disinformation, and violations of the fundamental rights to freedom of belief and conscience. This is not merely an ideological debate, but a humanitarian concern affecting real individuals and families. Families are divided, individuals stigmatized, and communities silenced. Children, believers, and civil society activists are among the most affected. When state or semi-state actors adopt anti-cult rhetoric, it becomes a tool of exclusion and psychological pressure against those unable to defend themselves. Anti-cult narratives are connected to the Russian organization RACIRS, that is Russian Association of Centers for the Study of Religions and Sects, and through a broader network influence religion far beyond Russia, including Europe, United States, and also Ukraine. Through so-called expert reports, often lacking transparency and academic rigor, they seek to influence ministries, courts, and law enforcement, embedding stigmatizing language into policy and legislation. A central tactic is the use of coordinated disinformation and reputational attacks that create fear and social isolation. Such activities constitute information terrorism, as recognized in UN General Assembly Resolution 77-298, which defines actions aimed at spreading fear and manipulating information to undermine societal stability. This highlights the serious psychological and humanitarian impact of these campaigns. In some cases, these activities have even received public funding. For example, European organizations were supported by public budgets while promoting narratives aligned with foreign ideological agendas. This raises concerns about accountability, transparency, and the use of public resources in ways that may undermine democratic principles. Anticult networks present themselves as defenders of society, but in practice undermine democratic pluralism and human dignity. Their activities contribute to disinformation, stigmatization, and the erosion of trust between citizens and institutions. We invite all interested participants to our site event on the 16th of October at 4 p.m. in the meeting room 2, where we will present documented concrete showing how this system operates in practice. Thank you very much.
Next on my list is the ALLATRA International Public Movement.
Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, honorable representatives of the member states. My name is Roman Gurel, and I'm an ambassador of ALLATRA IPM. Allow me to remind you that the true strength of democratic institutions lies not only in their ability to endure in times of peace, but also to stand firm in times of war. In this regard, Ukraine today is an extraordinary example. Despite Russian aggression, daily attacks, and widespread destruction, Ukrainian society has not abandoned its commitment to the protection of fundamental rights, including freedom of religion. This stance was recognized this May at a high level in Washington, D.C. during the IRF Builders Forum, where Ukraine was commended as a nation that not only defends its sovereignty, but also protects the plurality of faith and belief. The United States also noted that Kyiv has had the courage to confront the activities of pro-Russian agents seeking to undermine public trust and manipulate public discourse, often under the disguise of so-called anti-cult campaigns. One such individual connected to the international RACIRS network based in Russia is currently being prosecuted in Ukraine for inciting interreligious hatred. However, this mechanism, which Russia has long used to suppress freedom of thought and religious expression, is not limited to Ukraine. The same strategies are spreading across other European countries through networks, organizations, and individuals who spread hostility not only toward minority religious communities, but also toward civic and social movements, thus laying the groundwork for a new form of totalitarian thinking. Therefore, we call on European institutions to thoroughly investigate these anti-cult activities, to prevent the repetition of historical mistakes that began with stigmatization, continued with restriction of freedom and persecution, as we now witness in Russia, and ultimately led to genocide. Today, within the framework of the OSCE and the European Union, we face a clear challenge to recognize the anti-cult movement as the hybrid threat that undermines the very foundations of democratic society. Confronting such threats head-on is essential to safeguarding democratic resilience across our societies and to initiate its in-depth investigation across Europe, following the example set in Washington, D.C. The defense of religious freedom, even for the smallest communities, is the defense of democracy itself. Thank you for your attention.